Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is a very short story, it's not a long story, and it's one of those oddities that is based upon a true nightmare of someone. And it's not written by me, there's a different author, I'll pop in the description anyway. And the author's KM Zafari. So, and it's called Jippa I, but it's spelled Jippa, but it's the A with the apostrophe on top, so that's what gives it that different ending. So it would be Jippa, but with the apostrophe on top, it's Jippa. No one believed him that the monsters were real. His uncle grew frustrated and impatient with the nighttime fears the boy should long have outgrown. His aunt was more sympathetic and well-intentioned, but she dismissed them as being merely nightmares. Only he knew that, at night, the truths always revealed themselves. After the lights went out and all was dark, the silence of his room was broken by the quiet scratching and moans. He covered his ears against the screeches, but they grew louder and louder until they filled the air, and he could feel them even in his lungs. Then, when a scream threatened to burst from his throat, and he could bear it no longer, there was silence. Not a sound. It was the same disquieting nothingness of forest animals when they sensed a new predator. The monsters were quiet, but he knew they were still there. He uncapped his ears and glanced at his little sister, asleep in the bed next to his, quiet and undisturbed. She slept through it all. He envied her peaceful slumber. She always looked like an angel. Then there was another noise. Whispers. She's coming. She's coming. She's coming, they said. There was a sudden scurrying of claws, a mass exodus of creatures retreating beneath the bed and back into the world from whence they came. There was but a moment of silence before a delicate fissure appeared in his wall, dividing it evenly down the middle. The wall began to split, but did not break. It unzipped. A soft mist escaped the seam, illuminated by the pale light that leaked into his room. Then the crack parted, and a stunning woman stepped through. She was draped head to toe in long ebony robes, and her tall sculptured headdress cascaded in a waterfall of fabric down her back. Her skin was powdered geisha white, and the narrow folds of her dark eyes were accentuated with black feathered lashes. Her lips were painted with the darkest rouge. Her teeth are shiny, stylish, black. She was beautiful. He sat up in bed as she glided across the room. "My boy," she said. "My boy, did I frighten you?" Froze in place, neither speaking nor giving any indication of thought, he only moved with his eyes. He watched her with his eyes, but said nothing. "Yes, I can sense it. You are a fearful child. That is why the creatures come. she said, smiling. I followed them to you. Now they are gone. But still you are afraid. He nodded softly. Are you afraid of me, boy? Her intoxicating loveliness drew him in, transfixed him. Yes, he said. Yes, she said. Then suddenly he wasn't. She rose into the air and began to float towards him, pausing to hover above his sister's bed. There flashed upon her face for a moment what could just have easily been a snarl rather than a smile. He could not tell. She returned her attention to him, descending in a graceful sweep until she stood at the foot of his bed. Tell me your fears, boy, she said. Tell them to me, and I shall take them from you. He began. I am afraid of the monsters. Good, good. The scratches began again from under the bed, along with quiet whispers of pain. As well you should be. Those creatures are dangerous things. But he was suddenly unafraid. Tell me more, boy. I am afraid of being nothing, he said. There was a sharp pang as his fear was briefly replaced by pain. Then it was gone. The woman began to glow like a delicate paper lantern. She became more and more beautiful, and his trust in her grew. More. I am afraid of losing my sister. The girl began to sleep fitfully, small moans and twitches escaping her tiny frame. She awoke with a scream, her angelic face contorted in fear. Get out, get out, get out, she cried. The woman's eyes narrowed as the door burst open, and the children's aunt and uncle rushed in. She was gone. What happened? Asked the aunt. The little girl was shaking. A witch. I saw her standing by his bed. The aunt clutched the girl in her chest and rocked her back and forth. It was just a dream, my love. It was just a dream. No, it was real, the girl said, crying into the woman's chest. It was real. Are you behind this? The uncle asked the boy. You think I brought in a witch? The man raised his hand to strike him. Don't you dare, the aunt yelled. They've been through enough. No child of mine would dare talk to me like that. Which is precisely why we never had any. The boy turned away so no one could see the tear that ran down his cheek. His uncle left, and somehow, amidst the soft murmurs of his aunt and his sister's upset sobs, he managed to fall asleep. It seemed like only moments had passed when he was awakened by the sounds of his unzipping wall. His room again filled with a misty glow, and the beautiful enchantress stepped back through. The boy glanced at his sister's bed, where she lay cradled in their aunt's protective embrace, both of them fast asleep. The woman sprinkled a sparkling dust, and it transformed into a vapour that swirled around the sleeping figures and seeped in between the cracks of their eyes. Their breathing slowed and their bodies stilled. I only help them sleep, boy, the woman said. Tell me more of your fears. I am afraid of my uncle. A small groan escaped from the room down the hall. Yes, she said, I can feel that. But he no longer did. Shall I make him sleep deeply? I can make him just go away. Just like your fear. No, the boy whispered loudly. No, I am afraid that he will be taken from me, like my parents were. He paused for a moment. I am afraid to be alone. Ah, yes, she said. That is your deepest fear. Yes, but do you feel it any more? He thought for a moment, waiting for the panic to overtake him. No, I don't, he said with a surprise. And do you fear the monsters? No. Of being nothing? No. Of losing your sister? His chest tightened for a moment as he stared at the girl's angelic form. I love her. I do not wish to lose her, but I am not afraid. Good. That is good, boy. So, do you feel peace? Yes. Yes, I do. Fear causes pain. I can remove all of your fears, boy, and you will never feel pain again. How? Do you want it? He swallowed. Yes. Then turn around. He did. Remove your shirt, boy. He shifted uncomfortably, but did as he was told. Yes, she said, stroking a long talon down his spine. You shall do nicely. Tell me, are you afraid, boy? Yes, he said. She breathed in deeply. Yes, I can feel it. Then he did not. She pulled a long metallic zipper from the folds of her robes and held it out for him to see. And now? Yes, he said, shaking. Yes, she echoed, in something between purr and hiss. Yes. His shivering stopped. She produced a long curved needle and a spool of metallic thread. Yes, she asked. Yes, he said. Yes. His jaw became still, completely still. She placed the zipper along his spine. She no longer had to ask. Not anymore. Yes, he whimpered. Yes, be afraid. Then she began to sew. She was gentle at first, then aggressive, feeding off of each acknowledgement and cry. Yes, yes, he said, tears streaming down his cheek. And she became more and more luminous until only the black of her eyes and teeth, the red of her lips could be seen. The rest was luminous. The skin along his spine was swollen, pink and bleeding, but the zipper shined and flashed in a light with each movement of a small shivering body. She marvelled at her creation. Come, boy, let me step inside, she said as she began to unzip him. There was a sudden flurry of scratching sounds as a horde of monsters emerged from their kingdom beneath his bed. She is here, she is here, she is here, they whispered. The creatures were pale from living underground, their claws sharp, pointed, and perfectly designed for digging and hunting, hung at the ends of muscular arms. Their bodies were thick, with loose folds of skin that hung from their frames. The legs that carried them were thin and knobbly jointed. They had the crooked, protruding teeth of a bulldog and white, contracted eyes, all which were trained upon the woman. Go away, she hissed. They surrounded the bed and began clawing at her legs, tearing through her paper-thin skin and releasing her light in bright, piercing streaks. No, she screamed. Let me unzip you, boy. Protect me. No, 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 came a chorus of whispers as the monsters formed a protective wall around the boy. No, no, no. Please, boy, please. They will surely eat you once they kill you. But I am no longer afraid of them. I feel nothing. Yes, I have hollowed you, and now there is room for me. She fought back at the creatures, slashing them with claws of her own. Black ink began to bleed into her eyes, and a burst of energy shot forth from her body, knocking the stunned creatures to the ground. Her glow ebbed and her beauty faded. Come to me, boy. I need your form. He stood still. If you love your sister, she said, displaying her fingers towards the girl to release the creeping mist, you will come. No, he cried. Then softly, I will do as you ask. He stepped forward and turned his back to face her, crying as the witch pulled the zipper down his spine. He stared at his sleeping sister. I love you, he said. I love you more than anything. It does not matter, boy, the witch said, as she pulled apart his skin. She cannot hear you. His vision blackened as she stepped inside. He awoke to the sounds of scratches retreating beneath him, the witch's final words surrounding all in his mind. She is already dead. His heart stopped. He turned towards the girl in a panic. Mirai? He held his breath, staring at her tiny form. She did look just like an angel. That is the end of the full story, guys. And that's called the Jippa I. And it is obviously from a different culture. But it's still a witch. It's just a different kind of witch. There are two types of those in my beliefs. There's one that does genuinely eat sins or fears for good. And then there is that kind that trick you. You see, not all things that look ugly and monstrous are evil. Sometimes the worst of the worst look very beautiful, very light. And it's generally the opposite way around in truth. So that's a lesson in the story. Thank you for listening and many blessings.